Before I spill this cup of piping British drama, drop a comment. Was the general out of line? Or just finally giving my parents the public slap they deserved? And if you're new, hit subscribe. I expose family hypocrisy and backhanded love on this channel daily. You ever notice how some families treat photo albums like evidence in a trial? As in, if you crop someone out long enough, maybe they never actually existed. That's my family. Experts in revisionist history and selective amnesia. If you blink at our mantelpiece long enough, you'd think I died in 2008. There's a lovely framed picture of my brother, Daniel, age 10, grinning in his scout uniform, holding a certificate for most likely to lead the nation. And next to him, a strategically placed houseplant. That's where I was standing. Swear to God. They literally blocked me with foliage. It's either botany or banishment with them, no in between. Daniel, you see, is the one. The chosen son, the walking LinkedIn post. He's got a jawline you could cut cheddar with and a moral compass, surgically installed by the Queen's Guard. If he sneezes in public, someone hands him a medal. He's the type to say things like, "I believe in duty," with a straight face, and get applauded for it. And me? Oh, I'm LYRA, resident embarrassment, family disgrace, keeper of secrets no one asked for and opinions no one wanted. I once wore black nail polish to a family barbecue and got treated like I joined a cult. I didn't, for the record. I just liked feeling less invisible. So when I got the invite to Daniel's army promotion ceremony, I assumed it was a mistake, or a pity invite, or a clerical error by someone with too much optimism and too little context. But no, it was real. A formal envelope, gold crest, and everything. Even had my full name on it, which was weird, considering my mom usually refers to me as her, as in, well, she won't be coming, will she? Spoken with the kind of tone normally reserved for dog mess on a doormat. I briefly considered declining, or faking a contagious rash. But then I thought, no, let's attend the family circus. Let's see what it's like to be an extra in someone else's heroic biopic. Let's watch my brother get knighted with a metaphorical sword while I get handed a lukewarm prawn, vol au vent, and judged for existing without military clearance. When I showed up, my parents looked like someone had spilled Rabena on their beige sofa, shocked, horrified, mildly inconvenienced. My mum gave me the sort of smile you give your ex's new girlfriend. Strained, twitchy, and a bit too close to baring teeth. "Oh, you made it," she said. Like I'd risen from the dead or shown up drunk to a christening. I smiled back. Well, you know me. Nothing says family like public humiliation and lukewarm tea. Dad didn't speak. He just did the classic British male grunt. That half cough, half growl noise men over 50 make. When they're angry, but too emotionally repressed to express it without dying. You could have set your watch to it. A proper symphony of disappointment. They ushered me to the back row like a forgotten cousin at a wedding. Somewhere near the emergency exit and behind, a bloke with a neck the size of a washing machine. Classic move. Out of sight, out of mind. Or so they thought. What they didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that this little family shame had secrets of her own. Secrets that by the end of that ceremony would have my parents choking on their cucumber sandwiches and reevaluating their entire PR strategy. But more on that in a bit. For now I sat there, cross-legged, underdressed, and barely tolerated, watching a man I used to share bath toys with prepare to get saluted by half the military. My only consolation? At least I wasn't wearing beige. So I walk in 10 minutes early, which for me is basically time travel. And there she is. Mum, standing by the catering table like it owes her money, clutching a paper plate and looking like she's just spotted a feral raccoon wearing heels. "Lyra," she says, voice 3 decibels too high and 2 heartbeats too late. "You came." As if I'd just crawled out of a drain pipe uninvited. She smiled the way you smile at someone you hope leaves soon. All teeth, no warmth, and with the kind of eyes that scan for emergency exits. She gave me that once-over, the patented mum assessment, Tim, where her face does a flicker between, is that eyeliner or a cry for help? And did you really wear that? I was wearing black trousers and a blazer, not a neon catsuit. But alas, anything that isn't beige in my family is considered aggressive behavior. "I like your look," she offered delicately, as if complimenting a dog for not biting. "Very urban." I blinked at her. "Thanks. You look very Waitrose." She ignored that, obviously. She was too busy scanning the room to see who might be witnessing her. Daughter's latest PR disaster, me, breathing in public. And then came Dad, rolling in like a storm cloud that hadn't been forecast but now refuses to leave. No hug, no hello. Just that classic grunt he's honed to perfection. You know the one, it says, "I acknowledge you exist, but only because legally I have to." That grunt has carried me through birthdays, funerals, and the time I told them I didn't want kids. Emotional expression, not in this economy. He didn't even look at me directly, just hovered near Mum, like her personal security detail, radiating the silent fury of a man whose son is perfect and daughter is me. They stood shoulder to shoulder, whispering to each other with the subtlety of a badly dubbed soap opera. I caught phrases like, "What's she doing here?" and "Did you tell her to wear that?" As if I was a rogue wedding crasher in combat boots, not their literal child. Honestly, I was 2 snide comments away from doing a dramatic reading of my own therapy notes. But instead, I helped myself to a cheese cube and made eye contact with a passing waiter like, yes, I'm that one. The family embarrassment. Feel free to keep the drinks coming. At one point, Mum leaned in and whispered, "Just try not to draw attention to yourself, all right?" I nearly choked on a breadstick. Sure, I'll just sit here, perfectly still, and emit no sound or emotion like a nice decorative fern. Is that better? She didn't respond. Just smoothed her skirt and blinked at me like she was trying to manifest a different daughter entirely. Preferably one who wasn't sarcastic, politically opinionated, or capable of forming complete sentences without permission. And let's be clear, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't wearing fishnets or shouting about the patriarchy. I wasn't even being dramatic yet. But the mere fact that I existed in their pristine little world of officer class perfection was enough to put them both into DEFCON 2. They stood there whispering like I was about to nick the cutlery, which honestly I would have considered. It was real silver. The whole room had that tension. Like Christmas dinner, but worse. No presents. Just passive aggression in formal wear. Everyone was here to worship Daniel. The second coming of Winston Churchill, and there I was. The goth sheep with opinions. But I stayed. Smiling, sipping, and silently counting the number of veins throbbing in Dad's forehead. I could have left, sure. But something in me, that small, spiteful goblin who lives in my soul rent-free, said stay. Just to see what happens. Just to watch the cracks start to form. And oh, love, they were going to crack. There's a particular kind of silence at military ceremonies. It's not peaceful. It's not solemn. It's oppressive. Like the air itself has been ironed. You sit there, back straight, legs crossed, trying not to sneeze in a way that sounds disrespectful to Queen and country. The ceremony kicked off with the kind of pomp only the British Army could pull off without irony. Rows of boots, polished to the point of existential crisis, uniforms starched like they'd been dipped in glue, and medals clinking with every step like someone shaking a tin for the poppy appeal. And the buzzwords. My God, the buzzwords. If I had a tenor for every time. Someone said, exemplary service or valor under pressure, I could have bought myself a stress-free brunch in Soho. By speech number 2, I was convinced they'd just copy-pasted the same paragraph and shuffled the adjectives around like a bad episode of The Apprentice. Meanwhile, there he was. My brother, Daniel, captain of the universe, defender of nations, poster boy for stiff collars and unearned smugness. He stood there, front and center, in all his shiny, self-satisfied glory, the human equivalent of a grammar school prospectus. Beaming, of course, the kind of beam you reserve for moments of great triumph or when you're certain your estranged sister can't possibly ruin your big day. Guess again, sunshine. And then there was me, LYRA, resident, disappointment and last-minute RSVP, tucked away in the back like someone had tried to stuff sarcasm, itself behind a potted plant. Literally. I was sat right next to a ficus and a woman wearing a brooch so large it probably had its own postcode. She kept glancing at me every time I exhaled, like I might ignite the room with my sheer audacity to exist. I tried to sit quietly. I really did. But there's only so much decorum one person can muster when surrounded by people who think emotional intelligence is a type of crime. To my left, some bloke in a Navy uniform was whispering loudly about Daniel's remarkable discipline. To my right, someone clapped every time someone said service, like they were on a budget BBC game show. And me? I was somewhere between mildly impressed and deeply amused, sipping a glass of something, lukewarm and pretending I didn't desperately need to text my therapist. Then the slideshow began. Oh yes, a full visual timeline of Daniel's greatest hits. Childhood. Photos, not a single one with me in them. Naturally, footage of him giving a speech to Year 6 cadets, a clip of him shaking hands with someone important-looking and balding. I half expected it to end with a Marvel-style post-credit scene announcing his promotion to Supreme, commander of all siblings who actually matter. At one point, the announcer actually said, "It's rare to see such composure and focus at his age." Right, because getting handed things on a silver platter really ages a person. And just when I thought it couldn't get more surreal, someone behind me whispered, "You must be very proud." I turned around, smiled, tilted my head. Of who? She looked confused. I looked tired. The ficus looked like it was trying to die quietly. There I was, being treated like a tragic, cautionary tale for kids who don't listen in school assemblies. The disgraced sibling. The mystery relative in the back. The weird auntie type who might have a podcast about trauma. I don't yet. And through it all, Daniel stood up there like a glorified action figure. G.I. Joe with Daddy's approval and a clean shave. Mom wiped away a tear. Dad nodded so hard I thought his neck might snap from emotional exertion. The room buzzed with the sound of metals, clinking and arse-kissing at industrial volume. But beneath all that, I could feel it. The shift. The air cracking. Because you see, what no one expected, what he certainly didn't see coming, was what happened next. But I did. Because the thing about being invisible is, you get very good at watching and waiting. And then, just when the self-congratulatory air was thick enough to choke a Tory, he arrived. General Cartwright, the man, the myth, the mustache. He strode in like he owned the air molecules. The kind of presence that makes entire rooms stand up straighter and small. Dogs spontaneously behave. Broad shoulders, ironed uniform. Aura of intimidation so dense it probably had its own postcode. Even his medals had medals. You could tell this was a man who didn't just demand respect. He casually extracted it from people like loose change. Anyway, he marches in. Cue everyone sitting up like it's the bloody Ofsted of army ceremonies. And I'm sitting there, praying he won't notice me. You know, just trying to be unobtrusive and unbothered, like a slightly sarcastic ghost haunting the rear row in sensible shoes. But nope, he clocks me, dead in the face, and stops, mid-step, like someone just yanked his internal wiring. I'm telling you, it was the most awkward full-body pause I've seen since Uncle Pete tried Zumba at Mom's 60th. His eyes narrow like he's trying to remember if I'm real or just a vivid hallucination. Brought on by stress and black coffee, there's a full beat of silence. The room waits. I wait. Even the ficus beside me leans in like, ooh, plot twist. And then, in a voice so loud and clear it could cut glass, "Lyra, I didn't expect you here." Oh my God, you could feel the ripple. The oxygen physically left the building. Someone 2 rows ahead actually gasped. Mom's hand flew to her necklace like she'd just been accused of tax fraud. Dad turned to look at me like I'd just committed treason using nothing. But eyeliner and bad timing, even the potted plant beside me, no joke, wilted slightly. As if it too was mortified. Now, bear in mind, I haven't said a single word. I hadn't caused a scene, hadn't tripped over a flag, hadn't tried to sell herbal supplements to the officers. I was literally just sitting there, minding my emotional trauma and my cheese cube, and now suddenly I'm the main character in a military soap opera. My brother, Daniel. He looked like someone had just slapped him across the face with a wet sock. That frozen, glassy smile, like he was trying to keep his hero narrative afloat while the Titanic of familial secrets started playing the intro to EastEnders. And me, I gave the general a little nod. The kind that says, "Yeah, hi, surprise, it's me." The family disappointment you weren't expecting but low-key owe your life to. I didn't say that out loud, obviously. I'm not that unhinged, yet. But in that moment, I became the center of attention in a room where I wasn't even supposed to be noticed. All because someone with actual power had acknowledged me, by name, in front of my entire judging, beige-clad, pearl-clutching family. You could practically hear Mum's internal monologue short-circuiting. How does she know him? Why does he know her? What is happening, and is it too late to fake a heart attack? And the general? Oh, he didn't blink. Just stood there, unbothered, fully aware he'd just set the room on fire and wasn't even sorry. Which, honestly, I respected the hell out of. We love a bit of tactical chaos. Me? I sat there like the ghost of Christmas regret, sipping lukewarm wine and internally screaming, "Oh God, not here, not now." Not in front of the ficus, but deep down, a tiny, spiteful voice inside me whispered, "Let it burn. There are moments in life where you just know your parents are silently regretting every decision that led to your birth, and let me tell you, this was one of them. General Cartwright had barely finished saying my name, and already my dad's jaw was locked tighter than the lid on a jar of Branston pickle. I swear I heard his molars grind. It sounded like tectonic plates shifting. Honestly, if he'd clenched any harder, we'd have had to call in a dentist and maybe an exorcist. Mom, meanwhile, did what she does best in moments of perceived social doom. She clutched her pearls. Literally, not figuratively. The woman genuinely reached for her overpriced necklace, like it was going to protect her from the shame of having a daughter who existed outside the approved spreadsheet of family accomplishments. Their faces turned to me in perfect unison, like creepy twins in a low-budget horror film. And the look, was pure panic. Not confusion, not curiosity, full-blown cold sweat panic. Because in that moment, the illusion cracked. The nice little fiction they'd built, the one where I was the family shame, the emotional inconvenience, the distant cousin they barely tolerated at Christmas, it was wrecked. General Cartwright hadn't just seen me. He knew me, recognized me, spoke to me like I mattered to them. That was the social equivalent of being pantsed at a funeral. I didn't say anything, didn't gloat, didn't throw my wine in the air and scream, "Guess who's relevant now, darlings?" I wanted to desperately, but I was wearing good shoes and restraint is character building. Instead, I gave them the look, you know, the one, that calm, slightly smug little smile that says, "Surprise?" Bitches said with the poise of someone who's been to therapy and survived it. Mum blinked rapidly like her internal system was buffering, probably trying to compute how her difficult daughter with the attitude problem had ended up casually recognized by a high-ranking military officer in front of half the British Army. Dad's nostrils flared, always a good sign. That's the stage just before he launches into a quiet but furious rant about respectability and airing dirty laundry in public, as if me existing constitutes a full spin cycle. I caught Daniel's eye too. His face was doing this brilliant, twitchy thing, like he couldn't decide if he was embarrassed, threatened, or just constipated. Honestly, if he could have picked up a mic and announced, "No relation, she's just here for the quiche," he would have. The best part? I didn't need to say a word. My mere presence had detonated their little reality, like a glitter bomb in a church service. I leaned back in my chair, the one next to the traumatized ficus, sipped my sad little white wine like it was champagne, and soaked in the glory. Because for once, finally the power balance had shifted. They weren't in control of the narrative I was. And while they were spiraling internally, I was just thinking, this is nice. We should do this more often. So here's the thing. No one in that glorified parade of medals and daddy issues knew. Not Mum. Not Dad. Certainly not Daniel. The general did know me. Not in a she once spilled gravy at a gala sort of way. No. He knew me professionally. Personally. Intimately. Politically, if you like. Because while Daniel was out playing dress-up in desert camo, hero walking into PowerPoints and press briefings, I was off doing something slightly more useful. I joined a covert civilian intelligence project. And no, not like James Bond. Please. Bond wouldn't last 10 minutes in my department. There's no shaken martini or Aston Martin. Just cold Pret coffee and a shared spreadsheet called Things That Might Kill Us, but hopefully won't. It's more unpaid chaos coordinator meets national panic button. Think MI5, but with worse lighting and more mental breakdowns in the break room. Technically, I wasn't supposed to talk about it. Ever. But technically, I also wasn't supposed to be the emotional bin my family dumped their shame into. So let's all just break a few rules, shall we? I wasn't on the front lines. I didn't carry a weapon. But I did save General Cartwright's department's arse more times than I could count. From behind the scenes, yes. Silently, strategically, efficiently. The way. British women have been saving disasters since before the Crown started colonizing things. Quiet, capable, and, crucially, never invited to the after-party. There were times I stayed up 40 hours straight intercepting threats, managing chaos, decoding nonsense sent by blokes who still use Comic Sans in classified briefings. You don't know pain until you've had to extract viable intel from someone who types "urgent" in the subject line and forgets to attach the file. And General Cartwright? He noticed. Always did. He'd send thank you notes. Proper ones. Handwritten. On actual stationery. Not like my dad, who once forgot my birthday 3 years in a row and tried to blame it on daylight savings. Spoiler, my birthday's in July. There's no excuse. The irony, of course, is that while my parents were busy praising Daniel for showing up to training on time and not dying in uniform. I was literally out here preventing international disasters, with nothing but sarcasm, insomnia, and a very questionable VPN. And yet, in my family, still the disappointment. Still LYRA with the attitude problem. Still the one who never quite got it together. Whatever that means. Translation: I didn't marry a rugby player, and I once said the royal family needed therapy. So yeah, when Cartwright locked eyes with me, stopped mid-stride, and said my name loud enough to ruin Mum's blood pressure, that was years of classified competence finally getting a moment in the sun. That was my whole unrecognized, underpaid, and emotionally pulverizing career being seen by someone who mattered. And the best part? My parents had no idea. None. Nada. They still think I work in admin. Mum once told her bridge club I do something with filing. Which, fair enough, if you count intelligence reports that make your stomach drop and your sense of safety implode. But let's be clear. I didn't go into that work for praise, or credit, or even clout. I did it because it mattered. Because someone bloody had to. Still watching my dad's neck vein twitch as Cartwright smiled at me like I was more than the family mistake. That was healing, like aromatherapy. If aromatherapy involved your parents being publicly confronted with your relevance. And that, my friends, is the quiet power of the underestimated. We move in silence, until someone makes the mistake of underestimating us in public. Then we show up, we smile, and we let the room burn down politely around us. Now you'd think General Cartwright's grand entrance and eyebrow-raising "LYRA, I didn't expect you here," would have been enough drama for one military-grade afternoon. But no, this man, this magnificent chaos goblin with a metal collection that could sink a canoe, wasn't done. He walks right up to me. Not to Daniel. Not to the new colonel bloke everyone was fake laughing with 10 minutes ago. Me, the disgrace. The administrative disappointment. The daughter who once got disinvited from Christmas for suggesting the queen might have been a bit out of touch. He claps a hand on my shoulder like we're old war buddies. Firm, warm, and with the kind of weight that tells the whole room, pay attention. This isn't casual. This is important. And then, in front of every single person with a clipboard, a medal, or a grudge, he says it. You lot owe more to this woman than you know. She's the reason half of us are standing here alive. Silence. Real silence. Not polite British silence. Not the kind you use when someone drops a tea bag on the floor or says something mildly racist at a family dinner. No, this was the earth just tilted slightly on its axis silence. The kind that sucks the air out of the room, like someone's just whispered. Brexit was a mistake at a Tory fundraiser. I felt every eye swivel toward me like I'd just announced I was MI6 and also maybe God. Mum looked like she was about to faint. Pale, stiff, eyes wide like she just found out the vicar was on OnlyFans. Her mouth opened and closed. Once, twice, like she was trying to reboot. Dad blinked, repeatedly, like a Windows XP error message. I half expected to hear that little system ding, and a message pop up behind his eyes saying, unexpected, daughter relevance detected, abort mission. And Daniel? Oh, Daniel. His face. Imagine someone watching their carefully curated LinkedIn profile spontaneously combust. That was Daniel. Just stood there all captain accomplishment, staring at me like I'd suddenly grown a second head, a third job title, and a fourth dimension of meaning. He didn't speak. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe, possibly. Because here's the twist. Daniel didn't know either. Cartwright had kept it quiet. My work was confidential, remember? No headlines, no plaques, no parades, and certainly no family group chat messages going BTW. LYRA saved half the bloody armed forces X. So Daniel had spent years thinking he was the star of the show while I and his embarrassing, mouthy, too much eyeliner sister was apparently off having a phase. Turns out the phase was nation-saving intelligence asset. But go off, lad. The best part? I didn't even need to gloat. Didn't have to say a word. Didn't even smirk. Though I'll admit my left eyebrow did try. Just stood there. Cartwright's hand still on my shoulder, while Mum clutched her pearls like they might start vibrating from the shame. Behind me, someone actually coughed and muttered, well, bloody hell. And honestly, that summed it up. Because for once, I wasn't the one ruining the family name. I was the one holding it up, quietly, without credit, without ceremony, until now. You know that feeling when someone finally praises you, but it's years too late and wrapped in the stink of performative clapping? Yeah, that, I wish I could say I was smug. that I basked in the warm glow of vindication while my brother wilted and Mum's internalized snobbery collapsed like a soggy trifle. But I didn't, because I wasn't proud. I was bloody furious. Not at Cartwright. No, bless him, he meant well. Probably thought he was doing a noble thing, giving me my moment. And in fairness, it was nice to be acknowledged by someone whose name doesn't sound like a middle-class casserole. But it wasn't enough. Not even close. Because it took him, a stranger with clout, medals, and a mustache that could intimidate Parliament, to make my parents even consider the idea that I might be worth something. That I wasn't just difficult, dramatic, or going through something. Which, for the record, I was. It's called being related to them. So I stood there, being publicly validated like a raffle prize no one wanted until someone else pointed out its value. And all I could think was, where was this energy when I graduated top of my class? Where was it when I moved out at 21 with nothing but an overdraft? 2 pans and a raging case of generational trauma? Where was it when I was working 3 jobs and still had to listen to my mother say things like, "You could have been a teacher, like Daniel's wife." That's secure. And this one's a banger. Not everyone's made for success, darling. Cute. Real motivational speaker energy. Oh, and let's not forget that time, the time I literally paid their mortgage for 2 months when Dad's knee went, and Mom suddenly remembered how to faint over utility bills. Not that I ever got a thank you card, or even a text that said cheers. Just silence. And then a week later, another group chat photo of Daniel, holding a certificate and being told he was the pride of the family. But now that Cartwright had basically knighted me with his words in front of an audience, suddenly they're blinking at me like I've just performed open heart surgery in the break room. Mum gave me a little clap. Hesitant. The kind of clap you'd give at a year 4 nativity when someone forgets their line but gets through it anyway. Dad nodded once like I'd successfully parallel parked. And Daniel? Daniel was still buffering. Emotionally, spiritually, possibly physically. The poor man looked like someone had just told him his entire identity was built on a spreadsheet of lies. And me? I nodded. Politely, graciously, just enough to look well-adjusted, not enough to give anyone the satisfaction. But inside I was screaming, "Now you clap? Now you care? After a man in a hat tells you I'm useful?" I've eaten Tesco meal deals with more emotional consistency than this family. Honestly, if I'd been struck by lightning at that moment, Mum would have probably whispered, well, at least she did something dramatic. I stood there clapping along, feeling the slow simmer of rage that only comes from being chronically undervalued by the people who are supposed to love you the most. Because this wasn't about pride. It was about permission. Their permission to see me as worthy, once someone they respected told them I was. And that, my dear internet, is the kind of humiliation that doesn't scream. It just simmers, room temperature, right beneath the surface, waiting for the next time someone asks you, "Why don't you come home more often?" The reception was held in some aggressively beige hall that smelled like overcooked peas and unspoken trauma. You know the type, where the ceiling tiles are older than the monarchy and the sausage. Rolls have the texture of carpet underlay, and suddenly I was popular. Not just polite nod at the buffet popular. I mean full-blown, back from the dead, Messiah in a Marks and Spencer dress kind of popular. People who'd avoided eye contact with me an hour ago were now queuing like it was a meat raffle and I was the last pork pie. Aunt Carol, who once told me I was too opinionated for a husband, tried to take a selfie with me. A selfie. As if she hadn't spent the last 5 years pretending. I didn't exist unless I was a cautionary tale at dinner parties. "Get a photo with LYRA," she said. "You're basically famous now." "Sure, Carol. Shall we get one with the trauma too? Maybe slap a Valencia filter on my generational neglect?" Mum did the classic grin and grip, where she grabs your arm with a death grip so strong it qualifies as physiotherapy, and whispers through clenched teeth, "Let's not make a scene." Bit late for that, Mother. The scene has been made, aired, and quietly applauded by General Cartwright with a glass of Merlot. Dad, in a dazzling display of revisionist history, tried to catch up like he hadn't called me a disgrace 20 minutes ago. "So are still doing your file thing?" "National security," I replied. He nodded like I'd just confirmed I work in payroll. And then, of course, Daniel. Oh, Daniel. Sweet sunburnt Daniel, who looked like someone had stolen his spotlight and then sold it on eBay. He tried to joke, bless him. Wandered over with his awkward little pint and said, "So, turns out you're not as useless as Mum said, eh?" Charming really rolls off the tongue, that one. So I handed him a drink, gin and tonic, heavy on the gin, and with my best Ice Queen smile said, "Careful, might poison it." I'm shady like that, remember? He didn't laugh. Didn't even fake laugh. Just blinked. Again. It's sort of become his emotional signature, blinking through discomfort. Like a traumatized hamster. But Cartwright laughed. Properly. Like I'd told the joke at a dinner party in Downing Street and it had landed. He clapped me on the back like we were mates. Said, "You've got a dark sense of humor." I like that. Meanwhile, Daniel stood there like a loaf of slightly stale Hovis, realizing for the first time that being in uniform doesn't automatically make you the smartest person in the room, especially when your sister's been saving national secrets and silently paying for Mum's Botox. It was all a bit poetic, really. Everyone suddenly clambering to be near me now that I'd been publicly declared not useless, All the years of being talked over, dismissed, excluded from family-only WhatsApps, and now I was the main attraction, standing by the cheese table like some disgruntled national treasure. But here's the kicker. I didn't want their praise. I didn't need their attention. I just wanted my bloody dignity back. And a glass of wine I didn't have to sip between microaggressions. Instead, I settled for the next best thing, watching. Daniel's ego quietly implode while Mum tried to force a group photo like we were the bloody Von Trapps. And me, I just smiled. Because the tables hadn't just turned, they'd flipped, spun, and smacked every last one of them in the face on the way round. Here's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes the people closest to you aren't malicious, just lazy. Emotionally lazy, mentally lazy. The kind of lazy that means they'd rather write you off than do the actual work of understanding who you are now, or who you've ever been. For that matter, my family, they chose the easy version. Danielle, golden boy in a box. Polished, predictable. A walking LinkedIn post in uniform. And me, I was messy. Sharp edges. No husband, no filter. No patience for fake small talk about pension plans and when are you settling down. So I became the problem. The emotional ink stain on their picture-perfect narrative. Because it's easier to label someone difficult than it is to admit you failed to understand them. Easier to say she's always been like that than to ask, why? Easier to ignore my success when it didn't come with medals and parades. Just late nights, classified files, and a caffeine addiction that probably qualifies as a disability. But here's the truth. I've done more behind the scenes than they'll ever know. I've cleaned up political messes without blinking, stopped threats before they made the news, held the nation's secrets, with more loyalty than my family ever showed, me over Sunday lunch. And I don't need their applause. Truly, I'm not 12, performing ballet in the living room for a well-done and a Rabina. I'm grown, self-sufficient, emotionally resilient-ish. And despite the fact they wouldn't have noticed if I'd joined MI6 or started a cult, I kept going. But let's be real. Watching their faces melt like Aldi cheese on a radiator while General Cartwright sang my praises, that was delicious. Petty, yes, undeniably. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't the emotional equivalent of eating cake for breakfast and flipping off a parking warden, but also healing in the reclaiming my sanity from people who thought their opinion defined my worth kind of way. It's funny, isn't it? All that effort to erase me, and yet I'm the part of the story they'll never be able to forget now. I became the footnote they didn't see coming, the subplot with teeth, the family disgrace who turned out to be the national asset. And they had to clap. Which just proves something I've come to swear by. Vengeance doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it just has to be unexpected. A nod from the general. A room full of awkward clapping. A brother with his ego in fragments. And me, finally seen. Not because I begged. Not because I fought. But because I walked in, took up space, and refused to shrink just to make them feel bigger. So here's what I've learned truly. If they don't clap when you win quietly, let them choke when you win out loud. And always, always poison the gin with a smile.